But you gave him better advice, right?
Yeah, I told him don't do anything that I've done. And he didn't listen to a single freaking thing I said. And he opened pretty much exactly as we had. One barrel system, crappy location, hard to find.
Welcome to Stout Conversations, where every week we sit down with creative thinkers in the craft beer industry and beyond. Your hosts, Ken and April, live and work in a 24-foot RV, traveling the country in search of great stories around a great beer. Join us this week as we get a bit strange with Tim Myers of Strange Craft Beer Company. A veteran in the Denver craft beer scene, Tim was one of the first to open a taproom-only brewery and definitely one of the few to share his taproom with another brewery. Originally started as Strange Brewing, Strange Craft has grown into one of Denver's best-loved, off-the-beaten-path breweries. Disclaimer, no mice were harmed in the filming of this video. Here's to keeping it strange.
All right, where are we?
We're at Strange Craft
With Tim.
with Tim Myers, who is an OG of the Denver beer scene now.
I'm one of the grizzled, gray-haired old veterans at 10 years.
Not too many left in Colorado before you, outside of maybe some Oscar Blues and New Belgium.
It's funny, everybody that I talked to before I opened is still going strong. When I was starting to research this in like 2007, 2008, I actually did put a little thinking into this. We didn't just rent a space, roll in the homebrew one barrel. But I was talking to guys like Brian Dunn at Great Divide, Peter Buchard up at New Belgium, Eric Wallace at Lefthand, and they were all very generous with their time and their advice and their opinions. But every time I would broach the question, so what kind of budget do I need to include in the business plan for getting open?
Yeah.
And all these guys would be like, $1.5–2 million in capital would be good to start, but that's not really going to leave you any operating capital for the first year or two until you start making money. So probably budget $2.5–3 million.
And this is over 10 years.
And this is
more than a decade ago.
This is during the Great Recession.
Yeah.
Oh man.
And I'm thinking, that's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
And then my homebrew shop closed on Mondays. They even put that on the shirt. Closed on Mondays. Deal with it. And I was trying to brew a batch that day, and I'm like, oh shit. So I drove out to the brew hut in South Aurora, and I see these like wrought iron ice cream parlor tables in a back corner. I'm like, whoa, what's the deal with that? And he said, that's our brewery. That's our tasting room. I'm like, what? And that's when I met Kevin DeLange and found out that you didn't have to be packaging. You didn't have to try and make it in 6-packs.
Yeah.
Right, everybody
like all those other guys, they
were trying to distribute.
Yeah.
Right, he's
But
not.
you're not,
he's not
he doesn't
putting
have
$6 into a $7 or $8 product.
Exactly.
He's putting $1
And that
into
totally,
a $6 or $7 product.
and that totally changed my outlook on what a business plan should be. Having a 15-year-old and a 12-year-old to raise, it's a lot easier when I have the flexibility to run home when I need to, and be at the gymnastics meet when I need to, or tomorrow morning go over to the aquarium and watch my daughter scuba dive in front of the big windows in the dining room.
Yes.
It's nice being able to have that flexibility.
So while being a brewer isn't exactly the glamorous job, it gives you that flexibility to enjoy
Oh,
your
come on,
family,
being a brewer, you're a
sorry,
rock
it's
star.
glamour.
Rock star.
Look at the hat, man.
Right?
You don't get a hat like that
No.
if you're just an average Joe. You got to be a brewer to have a hat.
Yeah, when my
And an OG brewer.
when my Metro State students come in and all I do is make them clean stuff, they're like, well, this isn't glamorous. When do we get to the rock star glamour stuff?
Tell us just a little bit more about your Metro State students, because we're
So-
right around the corner really from Metro.
And Metro State, a few years ago, really doubled down and invested in a top-of-the-line beer program in their hospitality school. And they've got an amazing lab now. They've got some one-barrel brew systems that the students can brew on, so that they can really do hands-on try everything. And they have Tivoli in there, so the students can go over and work on the packaging line. or intern on production days and help out brewing on Tivoli's system.
Right, that's Tivoli Brewing.
Yeah.
Was an old brewery in Denver, right? And then it's recently
Exactly.
revived in the last few years, which is cool, right there on campus, basically. So.
And there's a ton of history. There's a ton of history with Tivoli. I mean, you still see the original Tivoli logo painted on the smokestack.
That's pretty
And that's
cool.
been there for, how many decades?
Yeah, even when it was like a movie theater and everything.
Right? Yeah,
For a
the
minute,
student
yeah.
union. I mean, how many
Yeah.
how many universities in the United States have an active lager brewery on campus in the
campus.
student
That's a
union?
good, yeah.
So
and that's a great opportunity for the students.
So how did you get the gig?
I got really lucky. Rising Sun opened 2 doors down from us, Rising Sun Distillery, about 5 years ago. And the professor had just lost access to Sandlot. Sandlot had been doing the brew day for the students for the Intro to Beer and Spirits course. And I don't know what the story was, but that wasn't going to work anymore at Sandlot. So the professor was looking for another opportunity, and the professor had just been teaching the spirits portion, even though they don't have a still over there, so they didn't really get the full hands-on. And we had been approaching Metro at the time about some advertising because they're so close, and putting something together collaborative to take advantage of this huge student base that could be customers, maybe some interns. And when Professor Ray approached me about doing the beer and spirits course, I was like, well, heck yeah. I get 20 students a semester to come in, and we make up we make up 2 beers because we split the class in half.
Right.
And we spend 1 2-hour Wednesday just talking about recipe development. And what kind of picture are we going to paint? What ingredients are we going to use? What's our palate? And then the next Wednesday they come in and they brew the beer. 2 weeks later we checking the beer, checking the gravity. Is it ready to crash? Are we going to be able to keg it? And then the 5th Wednesday after we brewed it, we actually have a tasting party. We either have it here, and the students bring friends and family in and say, hey, I made this. And you got Metro State, you got CSU, you got Regis,
Right.
all these universities now with these beer programs, and it's just feeding right into the huge craft beer market that we've created. It's great.
It is great.
And I was happy to get in with Metro State as early as we did, so that we could help develop that class and be a small part of their growing program. It's been really nice to be involved.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So you mentioned one of these beers was from Wits End, or helped.
Yeah,
is
so
it Wits End beer?
this one here,
Okay.
Jean-Claude Van Blanc, that somebody's already been
This one.
drinking,
That would be me.
is,
No,
see, you mixed
sorry.
them up.
I mixed them up.
This
This
Wits
is-
No,
End.
this
So
one's the
this is
breakfast.
Jean-Claude Van
That's
Blanc.
Jean-Claude Van Blanc.
This is Wits End's flagship.
So tell us more about Wits End. You have a partnership
Wits
with them.
End, Scott Whitsoe came to me in 2010 and heard about this little brewery doing a barrel at a time. And he was pretty much going through the same thing I went through in 2007 when I was talking to the Brian Dunns and the Eric Wallaces of the
Go bigger,
Colorado
go.
beer scene.
But you gave him better advice, right?
And yeah, I told him don't do anything that I've done. And he didn't listen to a single freaking thing I said. And he opened pretty much exactly as we had. 1 barrel system, crappy location, hard to find. And the only reason that he made it from 2011 to 2017 was that he made great beers and he was behind the bar every night.
Okay.
So people would walk in, he would shake their hand, welcome them to Wits End, strike up a conversation.
Got to
So
be
a
the
lot
rock
of
star.
people, fought the no parking available because he only had 3 spots.
Oh,
They
man.
would put up with all the BS to get to his space to hang out with Scott and drink his beers. And it was really like hanging out at a homebrew buddy's garage
Yeah.
and drinking
Right.
beer.
Yeah.
But the hard part for Scott is that was like 7 days a week. And
That's hard.
you know, I have a son and a daughter. He's got 3 daughters. And he started talking to me about closing. And we had a couple conversations about it. Well, why do you have to close? Maybe, you know, we've got extra space, we've got extra capacity. Let's find out what it would take to move Whitsend in here. You don't have to pay rent. Rent's already paid for. You know, we can brew some of your beers, put them on tap so that they're still available. And then Scott could step away for a while and spend time with the family and figure out what he really wanted to do long term. So he's still protecting his trademark because it's not like his beer names are public domain now because Strange is brewing.
Right. He still owns the trademark on those
Right.
beers, but you're brewing that
Exactly.
beer and
So we brew them, we distribute. He's in more bars and restaurants now than he ever was in when he was brewing them over on 2nd Avenue because he just didn't have the capacity or the manpower to distribute. So now he's in more bars and restaurants. We've got 5 Whitsend beers. We brought the cooler over. You got to get a picture of the cooler with the taps on it. This is how Scott thinks. You know, the first GABF after he opened, he's like, I need a couple extra taps. And he had a big kegerator that held like 4 or 6 kegs, and that was his main tap supply. He went out and he got this coffin cooler and put 4 extra taps on it and used it for GABF so he could have like 10 taps or whatever it was.
Right.
And then every night for the next 5 years, he put $10 worth of ice in that thing every freaking night. So people would come in, they'd see the big coffin cooler in the back corner, and you know, so 365 times 5. I have no idea how much he spent on ice over.
365
Yeah.
times 10 is what.
Yeah,
It's like
Yeah, he could have got
$1,500,
the
$2,000.
Yeah.
But hey,
But so when he moved in, we grabbed a jockey and we sliced off the front and we mounted it on the wall and
nice.
put the logo on there. So when the regulars came in the first night, they're like, "Oh, you brought the cooler over," not even remembering that the cooler that in his space was like 6
Big,
foot long,
massive
this big
cooler.
monster thing.
Oh, that's funny.
So and he spent a little time. Scott was a big believer in. I forget exactly how he puts it, but rewarding the curious, the observant. He used to have stuff. I almost said shit.
Don't
I
say
always
shit.
gave
We
him-
can't say shit.
I always gave him a
April
hard
might have to
time
clip
because
that
there
out.
was tchotchkes everywhere.
Oh.
And I can't do tchotchkes. I can't. My house is nice. It's simple. I don't have a bunch of mementos everywhere, and he had stuff everywhere. And somebody would come in and they'd see like a little action figure from a movie, and he'd strike up a conversation with
Like
Scott
a Star
about
Wars.
that movie, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And you can see Darth up there.
Uh-oh.
You got a little 3 foot tall Darth doll that he had hanging out in the brewery, and every once in a while he'd move it around. People had to find where'd Darth go. So he was always, he got to reward the observant with, finding stuff like that. So he placed stuff all over our tasting room. I had to hold him back a little. Now it's still the Strange Craft and Whitsend tap room. It's not the Whitsend tap room.
right.
We got to share the space here.
Remember
So
those
most
lessons
of-
you learned in kindergarten?
Most of his
Share.
tchotchkes are over on the far wall over there. But
So that's your clue if you're looking for the
Mhm.
tchotchkes. Search the far wall mostly.
Yeah.
Or
And
at
then-
least start there.
And then strike up the conversation with the bartender and see if they were paying attention.
Oh, yes. Yeah, because it's not Scott behind the bar.
No, he's been in a few times for anniversaries and big releases and parties and whatnot, and people really appreciate it. And we incorporated all of his regulars into our mug club to make them feel welcome.
Well, I've been
That's
noticed
good.
like on your social media, there's like crossover pieces and
Right.
things like that. So that's really
Exactly. We try not to just promote Strange Craft. We call it Strange Wit.
cool. Strange way.
Oh, that's
Which is
cool.
funny because that was always my Belgian wit beer name,
Meant to be.
and people very rarely got it. You know, you can get creative and clever when you're naming beers, but it's like a bad joke if you have to explain it. Then maybe you should have named it something else. And I have kind of an odd sense of humor, so I call our Belgian wit Strange Wit. And yeah, people dig it. That's it.
I like
Now,
it. Works now.
I know you started as Strange Brewing, right?
Right.
And then that got into a little
Well,
issue with the homebrew shop.
You know,
on
pretty
the East
much
Coast,
I had predicted it. I always told visitors when I do the nickel tour, because I inevitably somebody, where'd you come up with the name? Ha ha ha, Strange Brew, ha ha. And I would tell them.
Were you worried about the homebrew shop or the movie?
I always tell them, well, that depends on who sues us first. If Rhino Records sues us, then I'll say, no, it was the 1983 movie about a couple of drunk Canadians looking for free beer.
Okay.
And if MGM Studios sues us, I'll say, no, it's the 1969 Cream song, Strange Brew. And I was fans of both, so, and the original impetus was, you know, just the joke of Bob and Doug McKenzie.
Yeah.
But we were not going to make St. Elsinore beer. That was not the plan. And,
I was so
I
hoping
the first time that we started packaging.
Like,
I was like
this
thinking
is-
he's gonna totally geek out
She's
on
like,
this.
this is
Nobody's
going
gonna
clear off
understand
the
it.
rails
Totally
now.
geek
Yeah,
out.
I was really
Strange
worried the
Brew.
first time we started packaging in bombers. Somebody was just as a joke going to bring a bomber in with a mouse in it, just you know,
That would be
to
epic.
get free beer.
You'd have to give them free beer,
Right.
right?
Right.
I mean, I would do it just because.
Right, and then you know they win because they did it first, but then no, don't keep bringing in your bottles with the mouse.
So our last question that we actually ask is dealing kind of with our brand, which is living a stout life. And so we want to know, so for us, like living a stout life is an intentional life with purpose.
Right.
And travel and moving around. What would be your definition of living a stout life?
Stout Life. Well, I'm already working on that to a certain extent. Casey graduates in 3 years and goes off to college.
Not your son?
And then, yeah, that's my
Okay.
son. And then my daughter graduates in 6 years and goes off to college. And I've already explained to them that my retirement plan is, one of them is taking care of me when I get old and decrepit. I change their diapers early on. They can change my diapers later on. Eventually, my wife Marnie and I would like to retire up to the mountains. We moved to Colorado because of the mountains. We live in Denver because we moved from Chicago and we love the cultural life in Chicago, and we love the variety of restaurants and theater and music in Denver.
Right.
But we also like getting away from all that and heading up to the mountains. My dad lives in Blue River, south of Breckenridge, so we
Okay.
go up a lot of weekends and hang out at Papa's house. The kids get to see Grandpa a lot. So she and I are working right now through the process of where do we want to semi-retire, because I'll never retire. I'll be working until I'm 90.
You and Ford are going to be brewing next to the
so
river.
so we, you know, where do we want, you know, what's the next hop for us? What's the next step? So Stranger or Strange 2 or something like that will end up somewhere in whatever mountain town. You know, Tom Hennessy's done it best. Tom Hennessy opened El Vicino back in the 90s, and they opened Palisade Brewing, and they opened Colorado Boy in Ridgeway.
Some great breweries.
And every time that I'd be driving through Ridgeway, and I'd want to pop in to say hi to him, he'd be out with his wife doing a hike somewhere, and I would always miss it. And
Like, how did he pull this off?
that actually sounded really appealing.
Yeah.
He was brewing, he sold that now to the Echo Boys, Dennis and Daniel. Just, you know, 3-barrel system, enough beer on tap to serve 18 seats in a little mountain pub, pizzas out of an electric oven.
Maybe closed on powder days.
Yeah.
No
Right.
friends on powder.
No
days.
friends on powder days.
Or it could be like is it Mr. Grumpy Pants? Who's the guy up
Yeah,
on
it's
Blu-ray?
in
Yeah,
here.
you're right.
I
Yeah.
think it's Grumpy Pants.
When I
So
went
funny
there,
how many people know about him.
I wanted to see the space. And I got there and there's a sign on the door. I don't feel like pouring beer today. If you really need a beer, you can open and you can be the bartender. And I was like,
You're like, I know how to
interesting
pour.
business plan.
So I want to say, what?
No, go ahead.
No, I want to say cheers because I want to say, like, here's to being strange enough.
That's right.
Or just
Just
strange
Keep it
enough.
strange.
Keep it strange.
I have to tell you a story because I've never done the tap after
Oh,
the
yeah.
cheers. And I was
Okay.
hanging out with Bill and Ashley over at Beer Spot. And they always do the tap after the cheers. And I'm like, all right, I gotta ask, what's the tap for? And Ashley's like, that's, to remember, those that aren't here. And I was like, well, but if they're not here having a beer with us, the heck with them. I'm pretty sure I said a little harsher than that.
Yeah.
And she looked at me with flames coming out of her, because they're dead. And I'm like, oh, sorry.
We have new conversations every week. Be sure to subscribe to Living a Stout Life so you don't miss out. Be sure to check out part 2 next week. It's all about the brews. Strange brews, that is. And keeping up with that theme, Tim mentions the classic movie Strange Brew. We'd love to get to know you more. What is your favorite classic movie? Let us know in the comments below or by clicking the link in the description.
When you started, though, 2010.
Wait, do an
What?
introduction first.
Do an introduction first?
Oh,
Yeah,
we
who
have to
we
do this in
talking with?
order? We're not gonna like chop it
No,
and
please, it makes
slide
my
it?
job so hard.